Welcome to Live, life-inspired views for every day. My name is Chris Meyer, and I'm a curious soul. My grandma Meerwold always used to say, there is so much good in the worst of us and so much bad in the best of us. It behooves us all not to talk about the rest of us. Well, for some reason, that reminds me of that sweet feeling that you get when you've been wrong about someone's character. That sweet feeling comes after we are willing to reframe our view of them to look for the best of us. One of the first times I really experienced this was with a college professor who I could not stand. When I heard that one of my friends, who I respected very much, told me that this professor was one of his favorite friends, I started looking at that professor with new eyes. And guess what? I grew to adore him. Another time, I had a colleague who was a squeaky wheel in my world. One day, another colleague mentioned how smart the squeaky wheel colleague of mine and her siblings were in school. My focus on her turned 180 degrees, resulting in a wonderful working relationship and friendship. I learned so much from that squeaky wheel when I was willing to hear her words and see her heart with a different perspective. With most people who we simply do not like, we often set up an internal dialogue of criticism against that person. Criticism is never constructive. Criticism can be filled with accusations and blame. Wouldn't it be more freeing to like someone rather than to not like them? Reframing is key to learning to like another person. But what about the truly destructive and dangerous characters in our world today that we cannot reframe to finding good in? How can we see the good in them? Well, there was an experiment done at Stanford University some years ago that simulated prisoners and guards. It had to be aborted less than halfway through because they saw how good and ordinary people were quickly becoming tormentors of evil. We learned from that experiment that we human beings are fragile, very fragile. I'm reminded of the movie Star Wars. Remember the character Darth Vader? The good person that he once was turned evil when he became the leader of the Dark Empire. How could anyone see good in him? In people who act with evil intent and destruction like Darth Vader, we simply cannot see good in. Darth Vader had once been good, but had been seduced by the power of the dark side. What I will never forget is in the final scene of the Return to the Jedi movie. Darth Vader is finally killed. As he lay dying, he rejects the dark side he had joined and dies in peace. Makes me wonder if that is possible for all dark and destructive characters somehow. The cages of hatred they keep themselves in are not made of iron, but of thoughts. I keep sending vibes of hope that they will turn their thoughts and free themselves from the cages of hatred and destruction. There's a story of a young bride who insisted on going with her new husband deep into the hot desert where he was stationed as military personnel. He tried to dissuade her, telling her he would be gone for weeks at a time and the only people close by were the village women who spoke a different language. Her mind wouldn't change, and so she went. But he was right. It was hot and miserable, and all she could see for miles around was sand. When he was gone, she became so lonely that she wrote her mother and said she wanted to come home. Her mother wrote her back a letter with these lines. 2 men looked through prison bars. One saw mud, the other saw stars. Well, the young bride began to look at the desert differently. Now she saw flora and fauna that she'd somehow missed. She became so interested that she asked her mother to send her a book to learn more. She started trying to meet the village women and through hand gestures exchanged recipes so that she could learn to cook from them. So what had changed? The desert? Mm-mm. The village women? Mm-mm. No, instead of looking at the mud, she chose to look at the stars. Who are you choosing to see as mud instead of the small stars that may be within? You don't have to choose to like everyone. There are characters who simply have chosen some very destructive behaviors. Put them in a bubble and hope that one day their hearts will turn toward kindness and love. But for those in our everyday Can you find a little spot in them to learn more about so their stars can shine through to you? As Martin Luther King Jr. said, I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. The more we practice loving, the less chance we will become hardened. Who will you start with? Put that name on your bathroom mirror with a star around it. Then determine to look for something good in them. And then find another and another. Join me next Monday for Live, life-inspired views for every day. I'm Chris Meyer, and I'm a curious soul.